Brian Almon is with us. Brian, good to see you. He's at the Capitol. He's been there. He was hoping to see he was a big fan of the chicken bill. He was hoping to see that get debated on the floor. What's happening over there at the Capitol, Almon?
Oh, well, there's all sorts of stuff. There's a couple tour groups here. There's some folks who were talking about why Bayer shouldn't have immunity to lawsuits. That bill from last year is going to be back this year, so we'll have to address that when it comes up again.
Wait, say it
Obviously,
again. A what?
so you remember last year there was a bill that would essentially say that Bayer Monsanto would have essentially
Oh, Bayer and
immunity
Monsanto. Yes.
from lawsuits. Yeah, and that it was defeated by one in the Senate last year. They tried it again, didn't get out of committee. They tried it again, so they're bringing it back this year.
Yeah. Is that in the Agricultural Committee?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it'll go through agriculture or Juden rules or commerce. It depends on how they frame it.
Yeah, because yesterday, or was it yesterday in the Agricultural Committee, the bill that would have said we should label our food if it has insects in it,
Yes,
or if
that
it's
was
lab.
House Agriculture a couple days ago, and that one failed in committee.
Yeah, it failed in committee. You guys, did you all know that out there? The bill that would have labeled food if it had insects in it, so that you would
Or
know,
fake meat.
or lab grown meat. The food lobby was hard. They were hard in that committee, and that bill failed. And there you go. And there was no roll call vote, so we don't know exactly who voted against it. But nonetheless, yeah, that's where that stood. Okay, sorry, Almon, you were saying.
Oh, yeah, I was just telling you who all's here. As you mentioned, it was AFL-CIO came down to the Capitol today, so they were there. They crowded the Senate gallery long enough to get introduced, and then I assume they moved over to the House gallery because they all filed out. But they're all here. It's a festive environment today in the Capitol. But obviously, lots of legislation. We've got that medical ethics bill this morning. I was over in House State Affairs where there were some RSs introduced, some interesting ones. Representative Redmond had a bill that would require Bible reading in public schools, not Bible instruction, not denominational or anything. Just read 10 verses in the morning when you do your flag salute. And there's some skepticism on the committee, so we'll see what happens. They passed it. They voted to print it, so we'll see what happens in a full hearing.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was just a print hearing, so it'll come back for a full hearing. Yeah, that should be pretty. And that was in House Education, correct?
Oh yeah, House Ed. That's right. I misspoke. Too many committees this morning. House
Yeah.
State Affairs was actually full because all the union folks were in there. So I went over to House Education. Yeah, and there's Blake Gonzatti, president of the Idaho Family Policy Center, who they're some of the major backers of this bill. It's one of their legislative priorities this year.
Yeah, and we had it was the medical defense bill. Yeah, so we'll pay attention to this bill. I know there's some interest in that. But let's talk about the Medical Ethics Defense Act. A good friend of the program, Kate Hartley, did some remote testimony. So let's play a little bit of that.
Good morning, Chairman and Committee. My name is Catherine Hartley. I'm an attorney in Coeur d'Alene for the Pacific Justice Institute, and we encourage a yes vote on this bill. No one in the healthcare field should have to decide between their closely held religious, moral, or ethical beliefs and their career in the healthcare field. As the scientific and medical fields experience a rapid change, so must our laws. As noted in our written statement of support for HB 59, this legislation provides a much needed expansion of conscience rights not provided in current federal or state law. Historically, these protections have been limited to the interventions of abortion, assisted suicide, and sterilization. This bill recognizes that objections may arise in other areas of medicine and does not prioritize certain objections over others. Moreover, this bill would allow healthcare professionals to rely firmly on state law rather than federal regulations that may be subject to political whims. This bill also expands on the rights afforded by federal Title VII and its state counterpart to cover the beliefs of students and those who may work for smaller employers. Finally,
okay,
this
very good.
legislation protects
Kate
free
Hartley
speech
there
rights
from PJI, Catherine Hartley. Good friend of the program, Brian. So yeah, again, these are some very, very specific type of procedures and thing. This isn't just saying that like a doctor can just walk over a patient if he thinks that they're gay. If they're lying in the street because there was a car accident or something, right? We heard some testimony from a popular citizen testifier, Nixon Matthews, that kind of alluded to the fact that this will just allow people to just deny all types of medical service to somebody that they disagree with. And that's not what this bill does.
No, I haven't had a chance to read the text of the bill, but it sounds like from what everyone's all the testifiers are saying about it is that that's not the case. It's about conscience rights. It's like the bake the cake issue over in Colorado, where the cake store owner was happy to serve people who were LGBTQ whatever. It's just he's not going to write things or create things that he believes are against his conscience, and you know I can't think of any medical professional who would step over a dying person in the street. That's that's completely antithetical to what they've devoted their lives to.
I don't know. I don't know about that, Almon. We got a couple. We got a couple of. We got a couple of examples here. Let's bring up that article. Let's bring up that article from FEMA. If you recall, there was a big hurricane on the East Coast, Brian, and this is from ABC7. FEMA, a fired FEMA worker accused of skipping homes with Trump signs, says she was just following protocol. So apparently there's certain protocol against Trump voters, Trump supporters. And then, if you recall, Brian, in the LA fires that just happened at the beginning of the year, somebody uncovered this LA Fire Department promotional video where this particular firefighter said the following. Let's listen to this.
See somebody that responds to your house, your emergency, whether it's a medical call or a fire call, that looks like you. It gives that person a little bit more ease, knowing that somebody might understand their situation better. Is she strong enough to do this? Or you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire, which my response is, he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
I mean, maybe there's some validity to this argument, but I don't know. I know I'm being a little bit facetious here, but those are the types of things that seem to be institutionalized at a level that is completely out of line with any normal person's thinking, right?
Yeah, that's I don't know where that comes from, and it's interesting that she says that my godparents are. My godfather is a firefighter for many years, and he's a big guy. And it was his wife who always said she was against female firefighters because she wanted somebody who'd be able to carry her husband out of the fire if he got injured. And that's just practicality. That's not ideology. That's not politics. That's just the laws of physics there. But
yes.
We've had this runaway train in our country of going so far off track. So we've seen maybe some inklings of it getting back on track, and hopefully things like this bill this morning will get us back on track here in Idaho, where people can live out their consciences without necessarily impacting the other people around them.
Right. Well, this is Representative Bruce Scogg's bill. He closed with this after a bunch. We're not going to watch some of the other testimony here, but he closed with these remarks here. Let's take a listen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee. Yes, I would like to make some closing comments since there was negative testimony. First of all, there was an organization that represented that testified, and they want us to follow the science and they want us to follow the medicine. Well, that's the same organization that thinks boys can be girls and girls can be boys and that you can take off healthy body parts of children. They've testified to that in this House before. So I don't give them any credibility at all. We've heard examples of the hardships that many people have been through. You have a letter from, I believe, at least 20 professionals, many of them MDs, that talks about what they went through and why they want this bill to pass. I thank the doctors and medical professionals who have testified here today. You may not realize it, but it takes a lot of courage. You have 3 nurses that state where they work. They sent a letter. They put their jobs on the line when they stand up like this and talk to a committee. We have many anonymous letters that came to me that were from providers that did not want to give their names for fear of losing their job. I've not given those to you. Dr. Rodney Story, family practitioner in Moscow, Idaho, I found his testimony very compelling as to why we should pass this bill. And by the way, other states have passed this before us. This is not unique. Up to 15 years ago, one of those states, they've not had a plethora of lawsuits or closing down of medical facilities. My belief is they've actually increased the number of medical personnel that have come into those states. And I gave you an example when I brought you this for print at the RS hearing of my own relative by marriage, who now practices up in the North Idaho, Washington area as an internist. When he had to leave the state, go to Washington for his medical training, he was under constant pressure to refer out for abortion. They never asked him to do an abortion, but he was under constant pressure. He had to keep quiet on his closely held religious beliefs. He's Christian, or he would not have gotten through his medical school. So it's real. The discrimination is real, and this bill, I believe, will help Idaho have a better medical program everywhere we go, and better medical providers.
Yes, very good. Okay, so once again, it's so fascinating, Brian. You know, we have to have these bills, and we have this case with Major David Worley too, where like simply being a Christian and having these beliefs is like the hammer comes down, and you just kind of have to push back against this. So this is just another one of those examples.
Yeah, there's an author named Aaron Wrenn who wrote a book called "Life in the Negative World," and he says that Christianity used to be the kind of the default. Even if you weren't Christian, that set the stage for our culture in our country, and going to church was seen as a positive thing. Now it's almost like culture as a whole, especially high class culture, has turned it into a negative. If you go to church, if you actually believe those things, then what, you're kind of an extremist, aren't you? J.D. Vance, our now vice president, he wrote an article years ago before he even ran for Senate about why he converted to Catholicism. He came out kind of just a cultural Christian from high school, from his hometown, and he went to the Marine Corps, went to Yale, and he was surrounded by people for whom kind of a secular humanism was just the default, and if you believed anything else, then you were the weirdo. But then he reconnected and eventually made that choice to believe, and that's, I think, what we need. We need more people like the vice president, or like Representative Skog, or all the people who testified, showing that this isn't an extreme view. This is still, I think, the heart of America.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the norm. It's the norm. And I appreciate folks like Bruce Skog. I also mentioned that Senator Brandon Shippey, I think he operates from the same standpoint. I mean, the normal thing is to, for like in the instance with the Second Amendment, like we've strayed away from the normal that the Second Amendment outlines, right? Like that's normal. The normal thing is to be able to defend yourself from anything.
Well,
and we've strayed from that, and we need to get back to the normal.
It's like with Major David Worley, his position that men in dresses shouldn't be acting sexual around children. That should be the norm, and anyone who complains about that, maybe they're the ones who should be ushered out of the National Guard.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the danger that they impose on children. Yeah, very good. All right, Brian, good to see you. We'll see you back here on Friday. We'll have another article as well to push out there for tomorrow. So we'll look forward to that. But what else? What else is going on? You're looking forward for the end of the week here?
Oh goodness, it's already Friday. Well, the school choice tax cut bill might hit the floor as early as tomorrow. In which case we'll be focused on that. And then everything else is still happening. It's a flurry down here. I just need to sit down and write out, okay, what are my top 10 things to follow here, and then
very good.
Put that out.
All right, well, share that list with the rest of us.
Oh,
we'll
and I was just going to say real quick, I'm on my way to Capitol Clarity, Idaho Freedom Foundation, our friends, Representative Tanner, Representative Razor from up North Idaho. They're going to talk about state sovereignty. So after you're done watching Idaho Signal, switch over to that.
Oh yeah, fantastic, very good. All right, folks, that's it for the Almond Man. We'll see you in a bit.